guest. He's been very kind to give us some of his time, and he's going to be one of the speakers coming up this Saturday at the first ever Gender Theories Impact on Society event taking place at the Bismarck Heritage Center. Goes from 9:30 to 3 p.m. Alex Newman is joining us. He's an award-winning international journalist, educator, author, speaker, investor. Everything he does is really about glorifying God. So he's on the right show, that's for sure. I think one of the great things about Alex that's going to be fun to hear from him is I went back and did some homework on him. He's been on this topic now for years and years and years. So I think he really understands the root of what's happening and why it seems to be snowballing so quickly throughout our society today. So, Alex, thank you for all the work you've been doing. That's great to have you on the show. I know we've got you for a limited time. So I just want to start here. If you can share with our audience a little bit of your background, when you started, really diving into this topic. And most importantly, the thing that many people ask me, we don't understand is what's at the root of this? Why, like, for example, drag shows for all ages?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me on the program, Chris. It's an honor to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity. And, I first got started, I grew up overseas, so I never went to a school in the United States until some college. But around 2011, I started looking into these little news reports that were popping up in local papers about how standards were all being aligned under a national scheme called Common Core. And that began a process that would culminate in what I'm doing today. As I got wind of this effort to standardize everything that was happening in schools all across the country, even having grown up overseas, I realized there was something very wrong with that. America is designed to have separation of power. This is not a federal responsibility under our Constitution. So why in the world were we having national standards? Well, that initial investigation led me to so much more, so much that it actually got to the point where I teamed up with Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld, and in 2014, 2015, we wrote a book called Crimes of the Educators. Now, Sam had worked in education. He's written 13 books on education. He'd been doing it for over 60 years by the time we teamed up for this. And so I was able to learn a lot from him. And what I realized was that these problems that I was just starting to get a handle on were not new. In fact, if you go back and look at the history of the public school system, the people who created, designed, and built this system always had nefarious motives, at least nefarious motives from the perspective of somebody who loves America, appreciates our constitutional system of government, values Christianity and Christian morality and biblical truth. And so, that led me to the realization that this is probably the most important issue of all the other issues, because everybody's fighting for good causes. We're fighting to preserve our Second Amendment, secure the border, reduce the size and scope of government. All these things are important, but if we lose the next generation, and that's what we're doing right now, all these other battles are going to become a moot point. And to your question about why the transgenderism, this is part of a much broader war on our children, on our families, on our churches, and on our freedoms. The transgender stuff and the drag queen stuff, this is only the latest manifestation of a virus that has infected our country and is quite literally destroying our children mentally, physically, emotionally, academically, spiritually, in every possible way. And so I encourage everybody out there, get informed on this, get to the conference, and start doing something. We've all got to be involved here.
If you're just joining us, excuse me, Alex Newman, he's going to be a speaker at the Gender Theories Impact on Society this Saturday in Bismarck. But I guess, when you think about the root of something, maybe a better question for you is, so what's the end game? Like, what's their goal with all this conversation around transgenderism, drag queen shows for all ages?
Well, I think when you really boil it down, this is rooted in an effort to overthrow everything, including truth, including biology, including common sense, including reason, including our system of government. And the transgenderism, I think, really is a prelude to what comes next. One of the areas that I've been focused on for the last few years is this move toward transhumanism. And so there's been a logical progression here. Each step led logically to the next one. And so we can go back a little bit, right? In the early 1990s, sodomy was still a crime across virtually all the United States. The Supreme Court didn't strike that down until the early 2000s. And they were already grooming these children in school to be comfortable with the idea that we should be pretend judges, and we should consider this idea of a ban on homosexual marriage. Well, that led, and for that they said, well, you don't really need a mother and a father, right? Why not just have two fathers, or why not just have two mothers? Well, that led us to the next step. Well, I mean, yeah, two fathers, two mothers, but really there's no such thing as father or mother, right? You can transcend your biology. You don't have to be limited by the sex or the gender that was assigned to you at birth. And now the next logical step is, well, why do you have to be limited by biology at all? Why not transcend our humanity and actually go the next step, which is becoming integrated with machines? And I know a lot of this stuff sounds like very bad science fiction, but of course I've got the receipts, I've got the proof. I'll probably share some of it at the conference in North Dakota this weekend. But there is a very nefarious agenda here. It is contrary, I think, in every way to everything that the Bible teaches. And nobody's going to protect your children from this, mom and dad, except you.
So well said. Can you stay through the break?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I do want people to understand this transhumanism conversation. I don't remember the gentleman's exact name, but he spoke about it at the World Economic Forum, and he's like, "Look, that this is where everything's going." And he essentially said, "I'm sure you remember the quote, but it's something about." So the question is, what are we going to do with all these lay people? Is what he said, because everyone's going to be unemployed because the machines are going to be doing so much automation for us. And so I've got about a minute and a half or so here, Alex. If you want to take a moment to talk about the transhumanism piece, and then I want to share with people what they can do to get tickets, and then we'll keep you through the break. So just quickly, walk us through what is transhumanism?
Well, it is a very real agenda to merge mankind with machines. And again, I recognize that this sounds like science fiction to people who are not familiar with it, but at the highest levels of the global, I call them the predator class, like you've mentioned, the World Economic Forum, the highest levels of governments, they are working on this right now. They believe that humans should merge with technology. And they are working very rapidly, not just on the technology to make that possible, but on the manipulation, the brainwashing, the indoctrination to make it desirable and even, in their view, inevitable.
Wow. It's just shocking to see where this thing is going. So, if you don't mind, I mean, we'll keep you through the break, but I want to give people right now a chance to go and get tickets to this event that's coming up again. Alex is going to be one of the speakers there. I believe there's 4 other speakers. A gentleman that was born a man, became a woman, went back to being a man is going to be there. So it's going to be a very, very empowering conversation. And I think one of the things, and Alex, maybe you're going to have some coaching for us on the other side of this, is just how to have courageous conversations around this topic, because it's a very delicate topic for many people these days. And so I think they feel kind of squashed in what they can say. How do they open the dialogue, but also do it in a way that is Christ-like? So it's loving, and yet we can also have people kind of go, yeah, you know what? Maybe that's not the best thing for everybody involved. So go to ndcan.org, and that's ndcan.org, ndcan.org. You can get tickets there. It's limited number of seating, very small number of seats available. And again, Alex is going to be there, but really get empowered around this transgender gender theory conversation. Because like Alex just said, nobody's going to save your kids but you.